This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation, broadcasting to you live from Kiowa Island, South Carolina. I'm over here speaking at a conference for Mike Pence's new group, Advancing American Freedom. Governor Brian Kemp is here, a number of other prominent conservatives, Rich Lowry from National Review. It's a good conference, but they've been kind enough to pack everything around my show schedule so I can be with you guys. With so close to the election, really don't want to take off. So I spoke this morning. I had a 3:20 p.m. tea time to play golf with some of them. I've assured them I'm not good. They said the course is terrible. Then I got to speak at a dinner tonight, and then I got to speak tomorrow. But as I told you, I wanted to talk to you about this GPS warfare that's happening in the economy. But there's some breaking news I need to bring you up to speed on. It has been a major escalation in the Middle East in the last little while. Israel now declaring a state of emergency or a special situation for the nation of Israel. Lebanese sources are confirming that the third-ranking leader of Hezbollah, Ali Karaki, has been killed in an Israeli airstrike in the last couple of hours. Also, Israel is now saying they believe that they have been able to take out about 60% of Hezbollah's firepower, and they are continuing to advance. Within 72 hours, it appears that most of the command and control staff of Hezbollah has been wiped out in a series of very targeted missile strikes. Very interesting to me that this is... this has been rapid. The other thing here that you gotta be mindful of, the strategic implications of this. And by the way, there are rocket attacks happening right now in Israel. Hezbollah is firing back. The Iron Dome thus far being able to prevent everything. What Israel had done with the pager attack is they made very clear in their public statements. By the way, they never actually took credit for it. They never said it was us. Everybody knew it was them, but Israel has not publicly said it was them. What they said, however, after the pager attack was that they have 50,000 Israeli residents who are essentially refugees in their own country and cannot return home because of the Hezbollah attacks on northern Israel, and that they hoped that the dynamic would change and peace could be had. Hezbollah instead decided this is an act of war, we're going to start bombing. So Israel said, all right, fine, FAFO. And, well, now they are in the FO part of the FAFO. And the problem for Iran is this. With Hamas neutered in southern Israel and Hezbollah neutered in northern Israel, Israel has no disincentive to avoid going after Iran's nuclear capabilities. Had Israel decided to target Iran's nuclear capabilities and arsenals in Iran, it would have had to contend with Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in the south, and Iran to the east, and Syrian proxies going after Israel. The Syrian proxies are all but wiped out due to American forces. Remember, we're in no active combat zones, according to Kamala Harris, just Syria. We've harmed the Syrian ability to respond to Israel. Hezbollah is largely gutted, we believe. Israel seems to believe. Hamas is largely gutted. There's nothing left to stand between Israel and Iran. And Iran is the provocateur of all of these things. So this situation seems like it could be escalating. The American military is now itself saying, as I'm speaking, that it will be sending more soldiers and naval forces to the Middle East. Interesting. All right. Now, I gotta move on because I do want to talk about this story. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about this. Let me read you the beginning of this story from the Wall Street Journal. It is their big story today, Wall Street Journal exclusive. American Airlines Captain Dan Carey knew his cockpit equipment was lying to him when an alert began blaring pull up as his Boeing 777 passed over Pakistan in March at an altitude of 32,000 feet. The warning stemmed from a kind of electronic warfare that hundreds of civilian pilots encounter every day. GPS spoofing. The alert turned out to be false, but illustrated how fake signals that militaries use to ward off drones and missiles are also permeating growing numbers of commercial aircraft. It was concerning, but it wasn't startling because we were at cruise altitude, Carey said. Had an engine failure or other in-flight emergency struck at the same time, though, the situation could be extremely dangerous. Pilots, aviation industry officials, and regulators said spoofed global positioning satellite signals are spreading beyond active conflict zones near Ukraine and the Middle East, confusing cockpit navigation and safety systems and taxing pilots' attention. The attack started affecting a large number of commercial aircraft about a year ago, pilots and aviation experts said. The number of flights affected daily has surged from a few dozen in February to more than 1,100 in August, according to an analyst from SKAI Data Services and the Zurich University of Applied Sciences. Modern airliners' heavy reliance on GPS means that fake data can cascade through cockpit systems, creating glitches that last for a few minutes or an entire flight. Pilots have reported clocking resets to earlier times, false warnings, and misdirected flight paths, according to anonymized reports shared with governments and industry officials. Now, here's the issue that you've got to know about that I didn't realize was actually a situation. But let me give you the lay of the landscape globally. Let me pull up my globe here on my computer so you can see this. So normally flights could fly over Russia. And in flying over Russia, they had better paths, more efficient routes to Asia from Europe. But because of the war in Ukraine, Russia has prohibited Western flights from flying over Russia. So everything has to go south before you get to Ukraine, fly over Romania, the southern part of the Black Sea, through Turkey, and then you can go through Iran over the Caspian Sea, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and the like. But that now compresses all global aviation in a landmass from essentially the southern border of Georgia to Iraq. So every global flight path is through that strip of land. Now, to you and me, that seems like a lot of distance. But when you're talking about a massive amount of flights every day through that territory, and you're talking three-dimensional space, where every flight has to keep about a mile between each other, both a mile above and below, and to each side, and in front and behind, for safety's sake, and sometimes closer than that. It compresses the airspace for those amount of flights. Now, if you don't believe me, there are all sorts of cool websites that I absolutely love. Planefinder.net is one of my favorite, and it shows you every plane in the sky at one time. And if you pull that up, you can see, for example, there are flights that are flying over Russia. But when you look at the flights that are allowed to fly over Russia, for example, they're all Chinese or Russian flights, or they're bound for those flights. So right now I'm looking, there's Aeroflot is Moscow to Vladivostok. There's a Chinese air carrier headed to Shanghai, but almost every single other flight, if you look at these, are very compressed, flying over Turkey right now. You've got lots of Emirates flights. You've got you've got flights from European airlines. You've got Qatari flights, and they've all got to flow south of the Black Sea into a narrow strip around Saudi Arabia up to the Black Sea. You got a massive number of them. And that's where the GPS targeting is happening, in that strip of land, which is war-torn to begin with, because remember, they've all got to avoid Israel, too. There are lots of rockets in the air right now. So they got to split off. They got to either go Turkey, avoiding Syria, avoiding Israel, avoiding Lebanon, or they got to go south over the Sinai and then hook it into Saudi Arabia and go out that way. So you're compressing flights. And in that area, hackers have begun to have their way. And hackers are sending these GPS signals, and it's wrecking all sorts of havoc. It is not happening in the Western Hemisphere. It is happening in that very compressed area of land. And we presume it's terrorist groups. But there's another presumption that national security leaders are beginning to think about, that it could also be trial runs for more global chaos from the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans. And it could be this Axis power group that is preying on Western powers and Western commercial routes to cause chaos. Now, here's the corollary. I told you, when you picture the map, if you can picture the map, you've got Turkey, which is a big peninsula that sticks out, surrounded by the Black Sea and the Mediterranean and the Aegean. And flights can cross Turkey and they can go south. Or they've got to split further south and go over the Sinai Peninsula there by Egypt and then hook around Saudi Arabia. And so you have this open gap of Syria and Israel and Lebanon. Those that go south over the Sinai, they're running into Houthi territory. The Houthi, are the terror group that Donald Trump listed as a terror group, and Joe Biden, when he got into office, said, they're not going to be a terror group anymore. They are. They're a terror group. And they're launching rockets. The Biden administration plays a role in all of this, because the Biden administration decided to declare the Houthi no longer a terror group, and they've been able to restockpile and rearm some of it from Iran. And now you got the Iranians, the Chinese, and the Russians toying with our GPS systems, looking for vulnerabilities, in addition to malicious hackers also doing it to planes literally in the sky, not just cargo planes, but passenger planes. It's kind of terrifying to realize what they could pull off. Now, luckily for us, the Israelis, the Americans, and the Western allies and Taiwan are finding workarounds to these GPS hacking systems, and they have apparently come up with some novel ways to allow the planes to continue using GPS, but also to avoid the hacking. It's a real concern, though, y'all, and kudos to the Wall Street Journal for raising this issue. It's something that you and I don't tend to think about as we're here comfy in our homes in the United States, but as more and more planes are in compressed skies, unable to fly over Russia, it's becoming more and more of a security vulnerability for Western countries and their cargo and their passengers as they trot about the world in compressed space. So I mentioned I follow this pilot. He's a pilot for a 747 cargo jet. He's a brilliant photographer. He's got an Instagram account. And he was noting this. It's kind of wild to see this in the Wall Street Journal, because I saw his account yesterday on Instagram where he was talking about all these planes in compressed sky, that they've even narrowed the distances between planes in the sky over there because the sky is so crowded with planes. And it was just kind of wild. He was saying that in the early 2000s, pretty much there was nowhere in the sky a plane couldn't fly. And increasingly, They're being more and more compressed into these cargo and trade routes in the Middle East, over Pakistan and India. And as they get more and more compressed, the hackers are able to have their way with these flights. Keep your eye on this story. And also, it goes back again. Yes, there's a political angle here. The Biden administration, what they did with the Houthi, emboldened and rearmed the Houthi, and the Houthi are known to be some of the people dabbling in this GPS hacking.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Want to go to Sherry's phone call. Sherry, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the call.
Sure.
Okay, lots to unpack. I mean, gosh, don't I miss the Middle East peace we had under Trump.
Yes.
But I called because you said someone listens from his campaign, and I just want to make one request. I think he should do the interview, the debate, and I think he should not talk to the moderator or Kamala and look directly at the American people and address us, because we are with him. We understand he's fighting for us.
Yeah, look, I think he would have to answer the questions from the moderators, but yeah, and again, this is the thing that I
don't think
always.
So. I think you can ignore them.
No, I mean, when you go to a debate and you got the moderators there, but the point that I'm getting to, Sherry, though, is that he doesn't have to answer their question. Obviously, they're going to cut his microphone and they're going to try to ask him a question. But when they ask him a question, just look at the camera like you're saying and answer the question you wish they had asked as opposed to the question they did ask, because they're going to try a gotcha image and they're going to try a gotcha question, and they're going to lose if he just talks to the American public. I personally, I do think he should do the debate. I don't think he's got anything to lose at this point. I think that having Kamala, giving her a free debate stage with an empty podium next to her, makes him look like he's scared to debate, and his most ardent supporters will insist that's not the case. But I think a lot of people will, who are independent, curious voters, say, yeah, he probably should have debated. At the same time, to Sherry's point there, when they ask him a question about January 6th, for example, he can point out, look, Kamala Harris has been in office 3.5 years. Look how much worse it is than it was in this country on January 6th. He doesn't have to. No candidate ever has to answer a question that a moderator asks at a debate. They can answer their own question. And when they point out that you didn't answer the question, would you like an attempt? He can go right back to answering the question the way he wanted. Listen, I trained candidates for debates. The lesson number one is always you do not have to answer the question as they asked it, but you can answer it as you wish they had asked it. Now, let me tell you about Hillsdale College, because they've got a great podcast network where they talk about stuff like this. The Hillsdale College Podcast Network, free, your favorite podcast app. You can also get Imprimis for free. You can get their series on citizenship for free, their series on the Constitution for free. You can get everything at ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. All you have to do is go there. You can begin your relationship with Hillsdale College. Dr. Larry Arnn has some brilliant lectures. Victor Davis Hanson does as well, and it's all free. Hillsdale has had an educational mission since the 1800s to provide high-quality education, not indoctrination, for free to Americans. They were one of the very first colleges in the entire country to integrate because they believed every American citizen had the right to knowledge, and they want to give it to you. ericforhillsdale.com. Get Imprimis. Get the podcast. Get Dr. Larry Arnn's series on the Constitution, Victor Davis Hanson's series on citizenship. Get it all there. Eric, ERICK. ericforhillsdale.com. ericforhillsdale.com. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I'm actually in Kiowa Island, South Carolina, if you're just tuning in, here for an event with Mike Pence's think tank, Advancing American Freedom. Spoke this morning, got to go play golf after. I'm not very excited. Everyone's like, oh, the ocean course, it's absolutely brutal. You're going to hate it. You must come play golf. So nonetheless, here's the data, though, that we need to talk about. Mark Robinson, I thought we were done talking about him, but his team has all abandoned him. Yesterday in North Carolina, he lost everybody. Lost the consultant, lost the manager, lost the fundraising team, lost everybody. Had they done it, last week? Perhaps they could have pushed him out of the race, but they decided to wait. So why does this matter? I mean, this is the reaction I get from a lot of people. It doesn't really matter anyway, does it? Well, it does. And let me explain to you why the Mark Robinson situation matters. So let's start with the New York Times Siena poll, top pollster in the country. They have Trump up 2 in North Carolina, which is a very good sign for Donald Trump right now. He's in the polling average. He leads in Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina. They call it Sun Belt. That's great. That is very good for him. Here's the problem for North Carolina right now is that there's a Associated Press report out that no one has seen the Trump campaign team doing door-to-door in North Carolina, let alone Michigan, another state that he would like to win. So you don't have a massive operating ground game. Now, again, and this goes back to something I said last week, and I'm cautious to say anything here, given the, the angst of the people that I talked to about it. So last week I mentioned that America PAC, which is Elon Musk's PAC, has been doing door knocking in Georgia. Now, what they're actually doing is they're literature dropping. They're not actually knocking on doors, although about half the people that said Elon Musk's team has come by said they actually did knock and did have a conversation. Half of them just found the flyer on the door. And now, in disclosure, just for the anecdote, it's only about 12 to 15 or so people who've had this experience. No one in my conversations with my audience around Georgia has had anyone else show up at their door other than Kamala Harris's team. So now, for example, the Faith and Freedom Coalition says they've knocked on 300,000 doors. There's a Trump campaign volunteer operation that says they've knocked on a bunch of doors. Literally no one in my audience has reached out to me, even since I mentioned it last week, and said, hey, actually this other group showed up at my house. It's either America PAC or not seen. Now, at least it's being seen in Georgia. In North Carolina and in Michigan, there's no evidence that there's a real sustained grassroots ground game happening, volunteer or paid, for the Trump campaign. The Harris campaign is deploying hundreds of paid people, supplemented by thousands of college volunteers, knocking on doors, passionately talking about Kamala Harris. There's just nothing equivalent on the Trump campaign side. So that generally doesn't matter in a state where you've got a strong gubernatorial candidate or a strong governor already. You could use their ground game. So, for example, in Georgia, I'm at this event here in Kiowa Island. And Brian Kemp is here. Now, everything is off the record, but I don't think he'll mind me saying that there are concerns being raised in Georgia, that his ground game is now firing on all cylinders to try to help. But we've seen this in the past with Herschel Walker, where Herschel Walker didn't have a ground game. Herschel Walker was able to use the Kemp ground game because Kemp was on the ballot to get into the runoff, but Herschel Walker's campaign fell flat when Kemp wasn't on the ballot. We've seen this with other candidates with Donald Trump. When Donald Trump is on the ballot, Republicans can do fairly well because his game supplements them, and when Trump's not on the ballot, his team doesn't work. People are motivated by the top guy. Well, in gubernatorial cases, the gubernatorial ground game tends to help for that candidate and for Donald Trump. They can supplement. With Mark Robinson's campaign collapsing, he doesn't have the ground game to be able to supplement a Trump ground game, and now his entire team has abandoned him. That means that Donald Trump's going to have to spend more money in North Carolina because he's not going to be able to rely on a ground game from a gubernatorial candidate or the state party, because the state party's in disarray in North Carolina as well. People are furious they didn't force Mark Robinson out. Not that they could, mind you, but there's always somebody's looking for blame beyond Mark Robinson, and it's the state party. That why didn't you guys do more? Why didn't you say something? You all seem to know there was some problem with him. You didn't speak up. So people are mad at that. So the result then is Donald Trump's going to have to pull money out of other states. So does he pull money out of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan? He's going to have to take a gamble on where the Electoral College stands up for him right now in order to figure out where does he deploy his forces in order to redirect resources to the state of North Carolina. Now, that being said, he is in the New York Times Siena College polling. He's up 5 in Arizona. In fact, most people at this point do believe that Donald Trump has Arizona. Obviously, there's time to change, but even with Kari Lake dragging down the field, The presumption right now is that Donald Trump probably has Arizona in the bag. If you get Arizona, you get Georgia, and you get North Carolina, you get to 262 votes. So you still have to do something. If you were to win Nevada, you're only at 268. You got to get to 270. So if you win Arizona, you win Georgia, you win North Carolina, you're at 262. You've still got to win Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. So where do you deploy resources? Now, Trump did pick up a Muslim mayor in Michigan yesterday. The problem, however, is that he actually is not a hugely popular figure in politics in Michigan, and Kamala Harris is still ahead there. So where do you deploy your resources? That's why this matters. I hope you understand this, that you're going to have to deploy resources. Resources are finite. He's still spending a lot on lawyers, so Mark Robinson should have gotten out of the race last week. That could have brought renewed energy to Republicans in North Carolina in the way that Joe Biden getting out was able to give renewed energy to the Democrats. Ah, boy. So, now, where's the lay of the land stand elsewhere? When you start to look at the national polling, just realistically here and honestly here, there has been a creep up for Kamala Harris. NBC News has her up 5. CBS News has her up 4. Fox News has her up 2. The New York Times Siena College poll, though, only has her up 2. The Harris X poll has her up. The New York Times Siena poll has it tied. Harris X has her 2. Harris X actually isn't a fantastic poll. That's an online poll. But here's my point. NBC and CBS, they've got her up big. But forget the individual polls. What do you have to look at? The polling average. In the polling average, she's up 2.2. She needs to be above 3 points, headed to 4 points for this to translate into the Electoral College. Where did the Donald Trump stand in the battleground states? He's up 1/10 of a point. Now, that's a tied race. Here's 2 things. One, this goes back to ground game. Nobody has seen the Trump ground game. Allegedly, there's a ground game. The campaign now denies that it has outsourced the ground game after telling people for months, including on the record in newspapers, it was going to be outsourced. It was going to go to these outside groups. They're now saying, no, we've got it internally. They're relying on volunteers. Now, tangent. There are people out there who will tell you that a ground game run by volunteers is better than a ground game run by paid operatives, because the volunteer effort is a passionate effort of true believers who want to sell the candidate. The paid operatives are there to just knock on as many doors as possible. I will tell you that used to be true. These days, actually, paid operatives tend to be a little better than the volunteers, because the volunteers are so busy, so schizophrenic in their lives and everything they got to do, that they have a harder time actually getting out there and performing, unless you have a paid effort that is made up of passionate supporters. You find a paid effort made of passionate supporters, and that's your day job, is to go sell your favorite candidate. That works really well. And that's allegedly the model that's trying to be deployed in these states. We'll see if it actually works. With a tied game the way it is, and it is a pretty noticeable tied game right now, the ground game is what's going to save the race. And it is concerning in Michigan and in North Carolina and in Georgia. The Trump team does seem to not be performing on all cylinders. Firing on all cylinders, I should say. That's the problem. Now, they can overcome it. They've still got time, but time is starting to run out. It's wild to me that early voting has started now in North Carolina and in Pennsylvania. In North Carolina, the absentee ballots have started being mailed out. In Pennsylvania, early voting has started. Now, here's the side note on this. Kamala Harris is not doing well in Pennsylvania. She's up 0.7 of a point in the combined polling average in Pennsylvania. That's not a good thing for Kamala Harris. Why? Because in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump's ground game isn't as good as Kamala Harris's ground game, and she has Josh Shapiro, but the level of passion of supporters is disproportionate to Donald Trump. You don't need a ground game when your entire voter base is riled up to go vote for you. They'll remember, they'll figure it out, and Donald Trump has a riled up, passionate crowd of voters who are insistent they're going to go vote for him in Pennsylvania, which is a good thing. He needs that. He's got to have that level of passion to be able to offset the ground game. So where does this stack up right now? It is a completely tied race, ladies and gentlemen. That is the wildest thing to me. We are this close to the election. It is completely tied. As I mentioned earlier, he's not now going to go do a CNN debate. He probably should. What does he have to lose? Given her lack of, listen, the CNN debate, they didn't do what ABC News did. There was no fact-checking of Donald Trump. In fact, the ABC people said they did it because CNN did not. CNN made it very clear that's not their job. Their job is to ask the questions. They proved themselves to do a good debate. So I personally think he should probably go do the CNN debate, but he's not going to. So no reason to argue about it. So where does everything stack up now? We got a tied race. We're worried about the ground game. We've got passionate supporters in Pennsylvania who look like they're going to turn out for him. I have no idea. Normally, I have a sense. Now, in 2016, in fairness, I was wrong. I really didn't think Trump was going to pull it off. The Electoral College completely surprised me, and it really showed you how terrible Hillary Clinton was going to be. But generally, I got a pretty good sense of these things. 2016, everybody's worried about the economist. The only one I've gotten wrong was 2016. I got 2004 right. I got 8 right. I got 12 right. 16 was my anomaly. That guy, he got 2000 wrong, and he got this year wrong. He thought it was going to be Joe Biden. But this is the first time I can remember where genuinely, cross my heart, hope to die. I'm not saying that because I privately think Kamala Harris is going to win, and I want to tell you, or I privately think Donald Trump's going to win. For the longest time, I thought Donald Trump had it in the bag. And right now, I think it's a completely tied race. Last week, I was thinking, Harris might be able to pull this off. But this is a very tied race. I have no sense. It also, as just a outside observer and student of all this stuff on my watch, it's intriguing to me. It is intriguing to me to see what amounts to a tied race. Now, we know whichever side loses is going to say it was stolen. Let's just be honest. Both sides are going to say it's stolen. But the reality is, we got a tied race on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. The moral of the story here is if you are passionate about either candidate, you should be out there volunteering. You should be the one out there willing to knock on doors. You should be the one out there willing to make phone calls. You should be the one out there writing checks because you want to get your guy elected or your gal elected. You need to do something because it's a perfectly tied race in a 50-50 country. Now, what's not tied, hands down, winning is Vision Computers. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews showing that they're the best. And they've won the race for the hearts and minds of people who need computers. And they could do that for you as well. All you need to do is go to 404-COMPUTE, call them at 404-COMPUTE, or go to visioncomputers.com. They can build you a computer. Now, I want to do a very niche thing here. You know, talk about, you got a lawyer's office, you got to do it. See, you work from home, and you're an independent contractor, you're in the gig economy, and you need a reliable computer. They can build you a computer. They're going to save you money, and then you get their world-class tech support for free. So if you ever have a problem, you call Vision Computer, and in 15 seconds or less, they're going to give you the answer to what's ailing your computer. They're going to tell you where the file is that you can't find, why your email's not working. They can even remote in and fix your computer for you if you need them to. They can help you with printer support. So if you're in the gig economy, if you're an independent contractor, and you need a reliable computer and you need a tech support solution, you buy your computer from Vision, they're going to get the tech solution for free. If you want their tech support, but you don't have a computer from them, for $179 a year, by the way, business expense, $179 a year, they can become your tech support solution. Give them a call at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them I sent you. You're going to be able to save even more money if I'm the guy who referred them to you. So call them at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. And let Vision build your computer for you, and let them be your 5-star tech support solution so you're never losing downtime. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here, coming to you from Kiowa Island. I'm assuming you have heard by now there's going to be a clean continuing resolution. The Republicans have given up the fight on the SAVE Act. Unfortunately, I was totally fine with the government shutdown, but the Speaker of the House and the Republicans decided otherwise for a couple of reasons. One, they said there were not Republican votes in the Senate to have their back. And two, there were enough Republicans in the House who were going to side with the Democrats on a clean resolution. The Speaker didn't have a choice. So There's going to be an effort, I'm sure, to blame the Speaker of the House for this one. But the reality was he didn't have the votes, and the Republicans, the squishy Republicans, were going to cut a deal with enough Democrats to keep the government funded. So he released a note and essentially said it would be political malpractice if we tried to shut down the government so close to the election, so they're not going to do it. Okay, here's the thing. I think the SAVE Act was worth fighting for. I recognize I'm in the minority on that, but I still think it was worth fighting for. All that being said, why go through the kabuki theater to begin with? If you don't have the votes, you're not going to get the votes. Why promise us you're going to fight? And that's my frustration. Now, I realize now the Speaker himself, personally and politically, he couldn't do anything but fight. He needed to show conservatives he was willing to fight and show them it's not his fault. That it was the squishy Republicans who were going to sell him out. So I get that on his part, but I mean, come on, guys. This is not about the Speaker. This is about the Republicans as a whole. Really? I mean, why? Give us something. Now, here's the problem for the House Republicans. The polling for them actually doesn't look well. It doesn't look good at all for them. They could lose the House. While the Republicans pick up the Senate, the Republicans could lose the House. It's why Donald Trump was campaigning in Long Island, because there are a number of races out there that are competitive races where Trump is popular, and his going to those races actually could make a big difference. So I have no... I'm not going to blame him for wasting time in Long Island like some people have, because he could help the GOP. But the House Republicans need to help themselves as well. By the way, you should also know that the House Republicans have not raised as much money as the Senate as the House Democrats have. So in addition to all the other problems that you've got in the House of Representatives right now, you also have got a situation where the House Republicans are not being funded like the House Democrats are, and it's making the Republican hold on the House not good. Now, again, one of my frustrations with all of this, again, is that I know what's going to happen in November. It doesn't matter who wins in a very close election. The side that loses is going to claim that it was stolen. In Georgia, I mentioned this on Friday, the State Board of Elections has decided to do a hand count of all the ballots. Now, I gave some of you the misimpression. I didn't want to do that, so I want to clarify here that they're not going to count to see who won, which is what, if you do a hand count, you should do. They want to make sure that the number of ballots is equal to the number that were passed through the machine, which it sounds superficially like a smart thing. Let's just make sure the votes line up. But what if you miscount? I mean, you don't trust them to be competent enough to pass the papers through a machine without getting it wrong, but you think they're going to be able to hand count? If Trump wins and the hand count is off, the Democrats are the ones who are going to say it. So the whole thing is just kind of farcical nonsense to me. Very frustrating that the people want they want to find ways to manufacture chaos. And the House Republicans are definitely manufacturers of chaos.